Hello and welcome. Another edition of Coach's Corner, where every week I take a few minutes when we talk with college coaches across the country, all levels, all divisions. I want to remind parents, everything about college camps, college programs, college coaches, all located in the brand new, recently revamped uh, app, Baseball Blue Book app. Download that, create your profile, and make sure you're putting all of your videos and so forth on your profile. Today we're going to talk A10 baseball, specifically VCU Rams baseball, and we're going to talk to one of the very few coaches that head coaches at the Division I level that actually was a student athlete at the alma mater and now has become the head coach, Sean Thompson. Sean, thank you for taking a few minutes to join me today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Excited to be here.
One of the things is during my years with Tyler as a minor leaguer, he spent 2 years in Richmond, and I loved the community. I always enjoyed watching VCU games. An exciting new project that's coming up where they're building, I don't know if it's going to be called the Diamond, but a new ballpark for VCU right beside the old Diamond. So tell us a little bit about that new project, new ballpark, and how excited you are for VCU baseball.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited for VCU baseball. Obviously, the Diamond has a ton of tradition and a ton of great players like your son have come through there. But it's going on year 40 and a brand new project to obviously continue to spark baseball in the city of Richmond is going to be extremely exciting. We're going to continue to be with the Flying Squirrels over there. It's going to be a huge project, not just for VCU, but for the entire city. And I think it's going to speak volumes about the interest level that the city has created with not only minor league baseball, but with VCU baseball as well. And I know I'm excited for the day to see our guys finally walk in there and start playing in that facility. And it's coming sooner than later. So we're extremely excited about it.
So I would love for you to share. I particularly grew very fond of the area, Richmond. I mean, I just in the communities and some. What makes VCU such a great college experience over and above baseball, but as a prospective college student?
Yeah, I think it's the experience that's provided by the support staff and everybody in the VCU community. The people make it special. It's obviously why, I was a student athlete here, why I saw the vision. And then, coming back and being able to be the head coach here is why I wanted the opportunity because I just knew it was such a special environment to be around. Huge precedent on winning and winning championships. And on top of that, how we're going to do it is we're going to provide an unbelievable experience for the student athlete. And that spoke volumes to me as a young athlete coming here. And then I think it's going to continue to speak volumes to the student athlete coming through here now. Is when you're around a place that you're excited about being around the people and they're great to you and they provide a great experience. That's something people are going to want to sign up for.
Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the A10, we get so caught up in that P4 world. And, as someone that grew up with obviously URI, talk a little bit about the A10 as a conference, top to bottom. I mean, it is an extremely challenging athletic conference, not only in baseball, but all sports, but particularly with baseball, with Richmond, everybody that's in your conference really is fighting for that opportunity to get to Omaha, correct?
Yep, absolutely. And our league, I think what speaks volumes about it is the success they've had at the postseason level. Extremely competitive from top to bottom with some really good schools from the Northeast down and through the Mid Atlantic. But how we've competed, VCU's obviously had some good runs. Davidson, I believe it was back in 2017, made it all the way to a super regional. We made it to a super regional in 2015. And I think that speaks volumes of obviously the personnel, the level of players, and the competition that we experience in our league on itself. That we've been able to have success against some of the best in the country.
Before I go into the camps and recruiting, I want to encourage parents to make sure when you are looking into, through the Baseball Blue Book app, creating your profile, you want to make sure you're finding out when the various camps are throughout the season, because now more than ever, college camps have really become an identifying opportunity for college coaches to see potential recruits, high school athletes, et cetera. And on that note, I would love for you to talk a little bit about, we have some changes going on with regard to recruiting. Where does the high school athlete play? What role do they play with regard to your recruiting process?
Yeah, I think that the high school athlete's always going to be important. I know that maybe in the past couple of years it hasn't felt like that with the era of the transfer portal, but the high school athlete's always going to be extremely important. It's always going to be extremely important to our program. One thing we've kind of looked at over the years is who our best draft picks have kind of been through the years of our program, and consistently they've been our high school guys that have come up and gone through our development process. And I think as a coach you'd be crazy not to recognize that and continue to make that important. Now with the roster being smaller, will the classes potentially be a little bit smaller? Yeah, of course, and I think that's going to be very common around the country. But the importance of those guys and coming up and going through your development system, I think, is always going to be important. And I think that the high school recruiting process is so special. There's some pageantry to it, getting to go through it, go on your visits, getting to build really good relationships with these guys and their families, and then ultimately welcoming them into your family. I think just starts it off on a good note. And those guys, obviously, in our program, we've realized have been some of our best draft picks and some of our best players, and they're always going to have a place here at VCU.
A word you just utilized there that a lot of parents think is not part of the college process, the word development. Now, you're a student athlete that went when you were a student athlete at VCU, you obviously went through that tier of coming in as a freshman, learning as a freshman and a sophomore, and then becoming an upperclassman, becoming an integral part of the VCU RAM program. Talk a little bit about development with regard to how can athletes best prepare to be ready to be a part of VCU when they leave high school and go to college?
It's a great question. I think step one, and where we find the biggest bucket that you fill on guys when they come in, is obviously the weight room. I think making sure the weight room is a priority as you're going through high school, as much as the throwing programs and the different hitting programs throughout the country. And there's a ton of great ones that set guys up to be successful in their position group. I think it's the weight room. It's not biased against anybody, and you can see some huge growth, and we see it every year. And the freshman that comes in that's 88 to 90, and you blink by the spring and he's 92, 93. And throwing program wise, we haven't changed a lot, but they've matured a ton in the weight room. So I think having a really strong base of that coming into your program. And then on top of that, I think it's guys just coming in with a mature mindset. We run into it where guys, they're kind of scanning the room, seeing where they stack up, and just guys that are mature and, hey, I'm going to come in and work every day. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be failure. And being very self-confident. Hey, I belong here, and I have a place in this program. And the guys that come in with that type of mindset, we see the biggest success with. And I think it starts with challenging themselves on the amateur circuit. You don't always have to be the best player on your team. You're allowed to have failure. You're allowed to strike out. You're allowed to have a bad inning on the mound, because those guys are the ones that are going to be able to come into college and be able to handle a negative outcome the best. And then obviously I think the guys that come in and that just want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. I think that's the special thing about college athletics, and it's why so many people have a great appreciation for the college sport, is because you get to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And when you finally get to that point and you're just worried about how can I help the team, that's when the success and the personal accolades will follow.
You know, uh, and you're approximately the same age as Tyler and a few other athletes I've worked with. So I want to ask you this in retrospect, when you look back, do you think it is for a high school athlete, is it good to play with and against older players because it almost is preparing you for that level of college baseball? I think a lot of young players get this false sense of, okay, I'm a 14U, a 16U, but when you get to college, it's a man's game in every single facet of the sport. Would you encourage younger athletes to try to play with and against older athletes, whether that be Legion or college summer leagues or things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely would. And the reason why is obviously the competition, right, against the ability to compete against older, mature guys. But I think you also start to learn what really matters in our game. And I think offensively, you're going to be challenged and probably put in some positions where you're going to have to play some small ball. You're not going to be able to just stand up and hit and have a ton of success. And you're going to have to be able to use the short game. You're going to have to be able to bunt. You're going to have to be able to run. You're going to have to be able to run the bases really well. I think those are all attributes that really matter in our college game, and I think that was very evident when you just watched the College World Series. And then on top of the mound too, I think you're gonna learn things about pitching that you're not gonna be able to pick up your leg and be a 1-7 to home plate and throw it by everybody. You're going to have to learn some of those other attributes. I like to call it, kind of the game within the game, that I think is just beneficial for the young guys getting ready for college.
Now, I want to go there because not many coaches will go to this. But you talk about the game within the game, and I heard you say 1-7 to the plate. And so when I start talking to parents, that's the one dynamic that I don't think enough young athletes are hearing enough about, meaning how to hold base runners, how to field your position as a pitcher, making sure as a shortstop you have that internal clock of like 4.3, 4.4, et cetera. Can you talk about some of the, when you're evaluating a high school athlete, some of the non-measurables as far as foot speed, exit velocity, pitching
Yep.
velocity? What are some of the things that you're looking for when you're recruiting potential fits at VCU?
Yeah, I think it's always comes down to what you have comfort coaching. I think that's where it starts. If you really like coaching pitchers that really attack the strike zone, and you feel confident in your development process of being able to maybe add some velocity, maybe add a little bit of better shape to a breaking ball or a changeup, whatever it may be. Me personally, I think it's always starts off with the character. When somebody has really good character and really good makeup, I think the other things are going to come very easy to coach, because those guys are going to be high achievers and overachievers in your program. But for us, I think you can tell a lot about the way, it's a little bit old school, but I'm a little bit old school, even though I'm a young guy. Just the joy someone plays the game, how hard they play, and you can notice it. When the way guys take the field, the way guys run out, a fly ball, run out a weak ground ball in the infield, the way people run the bases, pitching. One of the big things for me, and it drove me crazy as a pitching coach, but the warm ups in between innings. That's your chance to get ready to go out and get the leadoff hitter out, which we all know is so important. Same thing from an infielder. Those warm ups in between innings. You don't know when the ball's going to get hit to you, or you can be ready to change the outcome of the inning by being ready for that ball that's hit right to you, from the leadoff guy. I think those things are all very evident and things that we look at as coaches that, sometimes the guys don't know it. But, sometimes that's the only look we get in a game is, you taking ground balls in between an inning and how your footwork is and what's your throw. Does it have carry through the first baseman's chest? And, same thing on the pitching side. I think you get a lot from that as well.
This is fantastic, and I hope parents are really getting an understanding of the mindset of a college coach. And I'm going to really ask this because you just touched on something. When you're dealing with position players, how do you get them to understand to prepare every pitch as a potential ball hit right at you, or a fly ball at you, a ground ball at you? And you have to understand and go through all the scenarios, what the game situation is. And you mentioned mental maturity, and that's part of the process of maturation on the between the lines is being prepared every single pitch for a ball hit to you and what you want to do with that baseball. Can you talk a little bit about that mental preparation pre-pitch and how to visualize, an outcome?
Yeah, I think there's different things. Obviously, pitching, hitting, and the defensive side. And we talk a lot about here. It's one pitch at a time. Every pitch has its own life to it. I think one of my favorite ways to kind of coach it is obviously when we do have the negative outcome happen. We're not ready for the ground ball that starts the inning, and next thing you know, we see how that spirals. Now our pitcher's in the stretch. Now we walk a guy. Now the single scores a run. Kind of being able to go backwards on that and talk about, hey, this all started with something that we could have controlled right there. And then I think some ways we train it. I think our pitching coach, Coach Howie, does a wonderful job coaching the mental game with our guys and talking about the importance of that. Because one thing I've noticed, throughout the transferring side and the portal, one of the main things that always comes up with a transfer pitcher is talking about, hey, I got to get my mental game better. I got to get my mental state with the way I'm going to go attack hitters. And I think if you're not filling that bucket, on a daily basis with your guys, you're missing out. But from a position player side, one way we train it with our infielders is that when we're getting our ground balls in between innings and you get a rep, it's game speed, it's a game like throw. And if it's not where we want it, our first baseman's instructed to give it back to them. And we're going to get game reps. I don't care if you get two or three or one, but we're going to get game ready and game reps. And those are some ways we like to work with it. And I think it has some really good carryover.
From a pitching perspective, and I know that I've listened to you speak in the past, and I know you share a similar philosophy. We get so hyped up on velocity, and parents and young athletes now they talk about spin rates and access and all this other stuff with regard to pitching. But I always try to encourage young pitchers, if you prepare to have a hitter in a dugout or on a base in 3 pitches or less, and you understand what your game plan is each particular pitch before that batter steps in a box, you're gonna be able to reduce your pitch count, you're gonna get your fielders engaged. Can you talk about why that is such a valuable mindset to have, especially for young pitchers who fear contact, and they don't want balls put in play, they're trying to strike everybody out. At the college level, you wanna trust your defense. Can you talk about why that matters as a college pitcher?
Yeah, I think it goes into a couple different things, and I think you have first off you have to establish what's important to you on the pitching side, and I think we obviously, in my opinion, there's some key metrics out there that equal really good results, and they're no guarantee, but when you add them up over time, they're going to be really good, and obviously first pitch strikes, winning the 2 out of 3 pitches that you throw to a hitter, you add up all these things, and they're going to obviously equal some really good success. I think tempo is a huge thing. I liked how you just talked about getting your defense involved. I think, we all know the pitcher that it's like a rain delay when he's out there, and then the guy that's pitching with really good tempo. And funny enough, it seems that the position guys are making all the plays behind those guys, and you're having some really quick innings. To go out there and have success. But I think when you kind of wrap it all together, it's something that we talk about with our pitchers that you don't get to pick and choose what's important. If you want to be really good on top of the mound, it's all going to be important. You got to be able to field your position. You got to pitch with tempo. You got to be able to hold the running game because those are all things that we know that matter and that are obviously the difference maker in some games. But then I think too is strikeouts are great. I love strikeouts. I think we all know that the weaker the contact, the less contact that's put in play, there's going to be less opportunities for negative outcomes. But I think it all starts with you got to be really in the zone to get strikeouts. You got to get into 2 strike counts. And I think it's when you get guys to understand you want punch outs, you want quick opportunities. It's about being relentless in the strike zone. And when we get guys to that point, I think that's when you see some really good success happen.
So I would love for you to be able to share, whether it's the pitchers or the position players, what are when you're out and you're recruiting, is it tournaments for high school athletes? Is it is it your camps?
Hmm.
How would you prefer, the high school athlete to approach the VCU coaching staff? Do you really prefer that they come on campus and take a tour and then participate in the camp? Or are you still out at a lot of the major high school events during the summer and the fall?
Yeah, I think we're out at a lot of the major events. I think the recruiting circle has changed quite a bit. We're obviously in the summer, you're doing some of the transfer stuff. You're going out to summer games. You're going to some of these leagues and watching these guys. Obviously, some of the really good tournaments, that PBR puts on and that Perfect Game puts on, we'll be out there to that. Now, I am very partial to guys getting on campus and seeing what we have to offer. I think, especially for the high school player, it's extremely important getting to meet people face to face, being able to interact, being able to see our facilities, and then even more into our camp. We've signed a lot of really good players out of our camp here. Getting to compete at the Diamond on our field with our coaching staff, going through a lot of the things that we're going to put our players through. I think you really start adding the pieces together in those settings where you start to see, hey, I can see the value of getting coached like this under this standard every single day and how much better I could get. And, I think that you can't put a price on that. And I think that with the roster shrinking, finding the right people to be around. I always say baseball, you never know who you're going to be around that's going to have a big influence on your career and change the trajectory of it. And I think baseball with the smaller rosters is ultimately going to get back to that. It's about being around the right people at the right time in your career, and that can be the difference maker in you being really good.
Final question, and I'm really curious your answer on this one. I've been talking with a lot of coaches over the last couple of weeks, and with the new roster breakdown, as far as the cap, I don't know what we're calling it, but really we're going back to the way it used to be with the
Yep.
35. Do you foresee carrying more pitchers, or do you just think it's going to every class every year will be a reevaluation with regard to what next year might hold as far as your specific area of need?
Yeah, I think that obviously it's always going to be a little bit year to year. I think you'll see a lot of teams probably try it one way this year and maybe readjust the next year. I'm excited about everybody really having a vision on your roster. That's what I'm really
Right.
excited about. I'm excited about, everybody thinks that it's been 40 plus forever in college baseball. It hasn't been. 34, 35 has always been the number. So I am excited about that. I do think it's going to be an era where some two-way guys are going to have some serious value on the roster. You're going to have your set amount of pitchers, you're going to have your set amount of position players, and you're going to mix in a couple two ways to get an extra arm and get an extra bat in there, which I'm excited for that as well here. But I think there's going to be a lot of touch and go with this. We all know that the value of really good defense and really good pitching is always going to keep you in ball games. So never taking a precedent off of that. But I do think it'll probably take a couple years to kind of figure it out and exactly what you want the mix to look like. But I do know that two-way guys are going to have some serious value here with the new roster adjustments.
Okay. I'm going to grab one more question
Of
because I
course.
think this is good. Sean, when you're watching Wright State, Murray State, all of these schools, are we approaching a more parallel or kind of consistent as far as from a competition perspective? Is college baseball going to have more parity, being more equal opportunities with regard to now the student athletes being spread out all across the country?
Yeah, I would imagine so. My personal opinion is definitely yes. I think with the draft being smaller, I think with the popularity which you've seen in Division I college baseball, like go up, like it's unbelievable. It's awesome. Just watching the postseason, watching these atmospheres, these teams are playing in. It's something really special, and I think kids want to be a part of that. I really do. But then also, baseball has so much parity in it. We see it every year, whether if it's amateur baseball, college baseball, professional. Anybody can beat anybody in the sport, and I think it's the beauty where it's not always the best team that wins; it's who plays the best baseball. And watching teams like Wright State, Murray State, Coastal Carolina going in and just playing really good baseball down the stretch there. It's really fun to see for our sport, but I also think it's really fun for our guys, in our locker room looking up, going like, man, we can do that here and this program's been pitches away from being in Omaha at VCU. Like that can happen right here. And I think instead of looking around at maybe what you're missing out on, you're going, it's right here in front of me. Now we just got to go out and do the work. I think it's great for the sport. I think it really is. And I think it's what makes college athletics. And that's just only good for what we're trying to do here.
Well, I'm really appreciative you were able to take the time and we were able to connect. I want parents to understand Coach Thompson, he embodies and personifies exactly what college baseball is all about. Former student athlete at his alma mater, coaching now with the vision to take VCU to that Omaha level. And now more than ever, with regard to portal and athletes being stronger, faster, more skilled, really it's all about the people in the uniform. The uniform does not make the athlete. The athlete is what makes the team go and the team jersey matter. So Sean, best of luck moving forward. I want to encourage families, go ahead and look up and research in conference, out of conference. VCU Rams play at a beautiful facility, soon to be a brand new facility, and they also play a great caliber of baseball year in and year out, and it's a great program for you as a future student athlete or parents that are considering colleges, not only in the A10, but anywhere in the country. Sean, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That was